Hello boys, welcome back to another session of online biology video tutorials. This session is meant for class 12th biology students and this is for 10th July 2021. As we have been discussing about chapter number 3, human reproduction. In all our previous sessions, we were talking about the physiological, morphological, anatomical features of male as well as female reproductive systems. We were talking about the gametogenesis, how male gamete as well as female gamete, that is sperm and ovum, will be produced under spermatogenesis as well as oogenesis. Now once the sperms are produced in a male and ovum, functional ovum, is ready in a female reproductive system. Now the question is fusion of nucleus of the sperm with the nucleus of the functional ovum, and that process is fertilization. So we are going to discuss about the formation of zygote as well as how zygote gets implanted, attached to the walls of the uterus and stay there for around 9 months, become an embryo and get delivered as a baby. So this is what we are going to discuss in this session. So basically we are going to talk about fertilization and implantation in this session. So during copulation, semen is released by the penis into the vagina. It is called insemination. So process of release of semen having the sperms, male gametes, into the female reproductive tract is called insemination. So as we said, many sperms will be released and out of that the fastest one will be able to meet the ovum into the female tract. So basically the female tract consists of a canal, vagina, and then up there is a cervix, and then there is a bag-like structure called uterus. So it is this uterus which will play a crucial role in the implantation process. And the bag-like structure, muscular bag-like structure, uterus, has got the walls like myometrium, endometrium, and endometrium again plays a very crucial role as we discussed under the influence of FSH, follicular stimulating hormone. Then the female sex hormones such as progesterone, lot of changes will take place in the endometrial wall, and there are two tubes that are running left side and right side, that's fallopian tube. And in the fallopian tube, just below the fallopian tube, there will be oviduct with attached ovaries. So the moment the female becomes biologically matured, the oogenesis process takes place, ovulation takes place because of the rupture of Graafian follicle. There will be finger-like structures in the tip of the fallopian tube, and that finger-like structures called fimbriae will absorb this functional ovum into the fallopian tube. So just above this fallopian tube there is a muscular structure, fundus. So fusion of sperm with ovum is called fertilization. So the moment the fundus, that is the fallopian tube having finger-like structures like this, will absorb the functional ovum or egg, we call it. Now the moment the functional ovum is released from ovary, we call it ovulation. The moment ovulation process takes place, the functional ovum gets absorbed by fimbriae and starts traveling in the fallopian tube. Now as it travels, there is a particular place called Amphilary Isthmic Junction. So that lies between isthmus and ampulla. This is the ampular region, this is isthmus region. So this region is called amphilary isthmus junction. What is the significance of this? This is the region where the sperm, fastest sperm, will meet the functional ovum. So fertilization takes place. So where does the fertilization take place? It is in the amphilary isthmus junction of fallopian tube. So this is normally a NEET exam. You must remember this junction. As I said, during insemination, millions of sperms will be released into the female tract through vagina, and the sperms start traveling, reach the uterus, and start moving towards left as well as right sides of the fallopian tube. And the fastest one will be able to meet the egg, waiting egg. So that's how the fertilization takes place. So basically, the fertilization takes place in the amphilary isthmus junction of fallopian tube. So how does this entire process take place? So first, sperms will be released, and we said that there should be the sufficient number of sperms, condition 1. Condition 2, they should have the size and shape, required size and shape, number 2. And number 3, the sperm should be motile, they must be having locomotion, and the one that is having fastest one will be the winner. So the sperms will be released in the form of semen, enters into the vagina, travels into the cervical canal through cervix, enters into uterus, that bag-like structure, then enters into the fallopian tube, reaches the isthmus ampullary region, and in the isthmus ampullary region, what is most important? Fertilization takes place. So what is fertilization? Fusion of or union of nucleus of sperm with nucleus of the functional ovum. And remember, both the sperm and ovum are having n number of chromosomes. That is only one set of chromosomes. Since we are talking of our own human reproduction, sperm will contain 23 chromosomes and the egg will contain 23 chromosomes. In the sperm, as you know, it can be a sperm carrying say 22 plus X, or it can be a sperm carrying 22 plus Y. So there is a variety in the sperm. Whereas in the female, the functional ovum, it has no choice. It has simply got 22 plus X only. So the fusion of nucleus of the ovum having 22 plus X chromosomes will have to fuse the nucleus of the sperm having either this combination, that is 22 plus S, or this combination 22 plus Y. So this combination, as you expect, 22 plus X from the ovum, 22 plus X from the sperm, 44 plus XX, that should be the female baby. On the other hand, 22 plus X is fixed in the ovum and the sperm 22 plus Y. If this fusion takes place, nucleus of this and nucleus of this, then you get 44 plus XY, that should be the male baby. So this is how sex of the baby will be decided. So the ovum in turn will be get absorbed by the fimbria, travels into fallopian tube, infundibulum, reaches the ampullary region as you are seeing here, and it waits there for 2 to 3 days. And in that period, if the sperm comes and meets the ovum, fertilization takes place. So fertilization happens only if ovum and sperms are transported simultaneously. So all copulations do not lead to fertilization and pregnancy. That's the time. And then a sperm contacts with zona pellucida. Okay, a sperm contacts with the first layer, zona pellucida. It induces changes in the membrane that block the entry of additional sperms. So that is the reason why only the fastest sperm can fuse with the ovum. There may be a question, if there are some 200 to 400 millions of sperms trying to give tough competition to each other and reach the ovum, how is that only one sperm will be able to fuse with the ovum? This is the reason. So the secretions of the acrosome help sperm to enter the egg cytoplasm via zona pellucida and plasma membrane. This causes second meiotic division of the secondary oocyte to form a ovum, oocyte, and second polar body. So this is what happens. After the sperm meets the egg, secondary meiotic 2 takes place. And the haploid nuclei of the sperm, that is N number, and ovum, N number, fuse together to form a diploid zygote. We say N plus N, 2N, 23 plus 23, 46 chromosomes. So that zygote has to become a human being. This is what happens. Here you can see the sperm entry, how the nucleus is entering inside. And once the zygote form, remember zygote is a single cell, one cell only. The zygote starts undergoing mitotic division, that is breaking, cleavage takes place. As the cleavage starts, it moves through the isthmus towards the uterus and forms so single-celled zygote, as you are able to see, divides first. Remember always, nucleus divides. Nuclear division takes place first. That is, we call it as karyokidesis. Karyon means nucleus. Kinesis means breaking of nucleus. So a zygote having single nucleus breaks into two nuclei. So later on it forms two nuclei. Each nuclei will form a cell. So we call it cytokinesis. So 2 cell, 2 becomes 4, 4 becomes 8, 8 becomes 16 cell stage. And this 16 cell stage is very, very important, because the cell, that each cell that is present is blastomere, and it is called blastula. Okay, blastocyst. So the embryo with 18 to 16 blastomeres is called morula. Okay, and morula continues to divide and transforms into blastocyst. So there is cavity formation, you can see here. So the formation of cavity will lead to formation of blastocyst. So morula and blastula. As we are seeing, in blastocyst, the blastomeres are arranged into an outer layer called trophoblast and an inner cell mass attached to trophoblast. The trophoblast layer gives nourishment to inner cell mass. Also, it gets attached to endometrium of the uterus. This is where the endometrium comes into the question. Now the inner cell mass gets differentiated. Now cell differentiation starts to form 3 germ layers. Remember, in 11th class we classified the animals based on how many layers are present during the embryonic stage. Remember, monoblast, diploblast, triploblastic animals we said. So we are having 3 germ layers: outer ectoderm, middle endoderm, and in middle mesoderm and inner endoderm. As you are seeing here, ectoderm, mesoderm, and endoderm. So 3 layers are there, and that is the reason why we are called as triploblastic animals. And this 3-layered structure called gastrula forms the embryo. Now embryo formation starts. So zygote single-celled, undergoes mitosis, forms 2 cell, 2 to 4, 4 to 8, 8 to 16. We call it morula. Now slowly morula becomes blastula. There is blastocele, inner cavity will be there, and outer blastal cells will be there. And now the blastopore will be formed. This stage having the 3 embryonic layers: ectoderm, mesoderm, endoderm, with the blastocele having a blastopore is called gastrula. And in gastrula, cell differentiation starts. So cell differentiation leads to formation of different tissues. So as you are seeing here, the attachment, how exactly the implantation takes place. After attachment, uterine cells, the cells of the uterus, divide rapidly and cover the blastocyst. As a result, the blastocyst becomes embedded in the endometrium. This is called implantation. As you are seeing here, this is the uterine cells, uterine cavity, and the endometrium, the inner layer of the uterus. The blastocyst digests the uterine mucosa, and as a result of that, endometrium grows over and surrounds the embryo. You can see the coverage, the endometrial walls getting overlapped or covering the blastocyst. So this attachment of growing embryo to the inner walls of the uterus, that is endometrium, is called implantation. Now you can see further here how exactly this takes place. So overall at a glance, so first and foremost, the ovary should become matured, and once the ovarian cells become matured, they form primordial follicles. Primordial follicle will become primary follicle. Primary follicle becomes a secondary follicle. So meanwhile, there is a functional ovum inside it. The secondary follicle becomes a tertiary follicle. Tertiary follicle becomes Graafian follicle, matured Graafian follicle. Now the matured Graafian follicle gets opened, blasts and releases the functional ovum, and the functional ovum will be absorbed by fimbriae, and now this enters into fallopian tube, reaches the isthmus junction, amphilary isthmus junction, waits there. Now at the same time, due to insemination, lot of sperms, lakhs of sperms will be released into the vagina, travel to the cervix, travel through the uterus, travel into the fallopian tube, and reach the fallopian tube, isthmus junction, amphilary isthmus junction, and able to fuse. The fastest sperm is able to fuse with the waiting ovum. Now you can see here the secondary oocyte. Now fertilization, the many sperms are attacking, but the one that is fastest only, look at this, the entry, yes. And now there is fusion of two nuclei, nucleus of the sperm, nucleus of the ovum, zygote is formed. Zygote undergoes mitosis, 2-cell stage, 4-cell stage, 8-cell stage, and then 16 cells, we call it morula. Now the moment you can see, you can observe, as the zygote forms, now the zygote is traveling down towards the uterus from the fallopian tube. Now once the morula is formed, the blastocyst is formed. Now the blastocyst starts getting attached to the inner walls of the uterus, that is endometrium. Now this attachment of blastocyst or blastula staged zygote to the endometrial walls is implantation. This is how the implantation takes place. Now once the pregnancy and embryonic development, once the zygote gets attached to the inner walls of the uterus, endometrial walls, we say now the lady is pregnant. Of course, technically once the zygote is formed, then only it is fertilization has taken place, zygote is formed, then lady is said to be pregnant. Now once the blastocyst gets attached to the endometrial walls, now embryonic development takes place. So after implantation, finger-like projections, chorionic villi, it is called chorionic villi. You can see the chorionic villi appear in trophoblast. They are surrounded by uterine tissue and maternal blood, maternal mothers, from mother side, the blood. You can see the placenta. Okay, that's why we are called placenta animals. The tube connection between the mother and the growing embryo starts. A lot of yolk, the fat content will be there, and surrounding this baby growing embryo, there is a fluid called amniotic fluid, which will be very useful in overcoming the stress and physical stress. And then this is all happening inside the uterus, and there is the chorionic villi that are formed, that supply blood and nutrition, blood and other things, oxygen to that. And there is a umbilical cord that connects the uterus to the baby, and then amnion, another extra tissue will be there. All this will ensure that the baby gets both food, oxygen in through the umbilical cord. Okay. Now the chorionic villi and uterine tissue are interdigitated to form placenta. So the mixture of these two will make the formation of placenta. So placenta is a structural and functional unit of the embryo, that is fetus, and maternal body. This gives a connection between the mother and the embryo, as you are seeing here, and that ensures whatever the growing embryo requires. Now placenta is connected to the embryo by an umbilical cord, as you are seeing here. You can see the presence of placenta, then umbilical cord is there, and inside you can see the presence of that umbilical. It transports substances to and from the embryo. Now functions of placenta: it acts as a barrier between the fetus and the mother. It's a connecting bridge, supplies oxygen, nutrients from mother to fetus, remove carbon dioxide and excretory waste from fetus, acts as an endocrine gland. It secretes a human chorionic gonadotropin, HCG we call it, and human placental lactogen, HPL, estrogens, progesterone, and relaxin. Look at that, how many it is secreting. So the placenta is able to secrete so many glands, and relaxin is also secreted by ovary. So under the influence of all this, the baby starts growing. Now once during pregnancy, estrogens, progesterones, cortisol, prolactin, thyroxine are also increased in maternal blood, mother's blood. They support the fetal growth, metabolic changes in the mother, and maintain pregnancy. This is how the pregnancy takes place. We'll discuss this further in our next session, and this video of today is also very helpful for your UPSC NDA.